Dr. Sachi Sud is an assistant professor in Department of English, BGSB University, Rajouri, Jammu and Kashmir. She has been teaching in the department since 2016. She has pursued her PhD in English on the topic Revisioning Gender Stereotypes in the selected play of Mahesh Dattani. A feminist view, her area of interest are gender studies, Indian literature, Dalit literature, Afghan literature, British literature and medicine. She has, to her credit, 20 research papers published in Scopus Index. Grammar for Little Learning Books, Dalit Literature, A Brief History. She has also published 18 chapters in different anthologies and ISBN books. She also prepared over 30 papers in national and international conferences. Also attended number of faculty development programs organized by different colleges and universities. She has supervised 2 PhD and 1 MPhil scholar. Currently, she is supervising 3 PhD scholars under her supervision. She is a member of Elatile and reviewer of 2 peer-reviewed international journals. Thank you, ma'am, for joining with us.
Thanks a lot, SEMS Foundation, for approaching me and for giving me this opportunity to interact with the people and to share my views on this topic, which is a very relevant topic, that is gender and feminism. So I will be sharing my slides with you people, and I will be discussing the slides in detail. Gender studies and feminism. As you have seen that I have divided my today's webinar into 2 sections. One is gender studies and other is feminism. So I will be starting from the roots of gender studies, the basic terms that are amalgamated in this huge umbrella that is gender studies. So I have divided my this PPT into 3 particular tenets. First is sex, second is gender, and third is feminism. So first of all, I will be concentrating on the word sex. Like so many feminist sociologists suggest that there is a need to understand and there is a dire need to distinguish between the 2 terms, sex and gender. And it is very pertinent according to our contemporary society to make them an indispensable part of our academic discourses and writings. So first of all, I will be focusing on this particular word sex. So in a broader way, when we talk about sex, it refers to the biological and physiological difference between male and female sex. The term sex is a physical differentiation between the biological male and the biological female. Thus, when an infant is born in a hospital or at some other place, the infant comes to be labeled as boy or girl depending on his or her sex. So the genital differences between male and female is the basis of such characterization. However, it has been argued since ages that having been born into one sex or another, individuals are then socialized according to specific gender roles and expectations. So then I have talked about Judith Butler. The previous things that I've discussed about gender is a general notion that we all talk about, like if the body is possessing the male genital organs, then the body is designated as boy, belonging to male sex. And if a body is having female genital organs, then that body is designated as female. But Judith Butler has something else to talk about it. Judith Butler, who is a very famous, contemporary feminist, she argues that sex is not just an analytical category, but a normative category as well, which means that Butler wants to say that sex itself becomes a social category. It is not a biological category anymore. It has been designated as a social category by our society, by we people, because we create society. This means that the distinction between male and female is a social distinction made by the society. That is, it is a social construction. It further stipulates that men and women ought to be what they are, but it also stipulates that what men and women ought to be. it formulates rules to regulate the behavior or to control the behavior of men and women in the society, that how they should behave. So from this step, that how they should behave, there is the birth of a new term that is called as gender. So I have written here one quote by Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir is again a contemporary feminist, and who is very famous for writing a book titled as The Second Sex, which is also considered as the Bible of feminism. So I have taken this quote from that particular book. I quote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman," I unquote, which further throws light, or which further illustrates the process from which a girl who is born with a female genital organs is further socialized into a woman, and how a male that is born with male genital organs is socialized into being masculine. So, gender. Anne Oakley is a very famous sociologist, and the people who are connected to gender studies, they must be knowing about Anne Oakley. So Anne Oakley, in her book Sex, Gender and Society, and Anne Oakley was the first sociologist who basically differentiated between sex and gender, because before that, sex and gender were amalgamated with each other. There used to be no distinction between sex and gender, but Oakley created a clear line of demarcation between sex, gender, and how society creates or molds sex and gender according to its own needs. So Anne Oakley was the first sociologist to differentiate between sex and gender, and she explores the term gender. So, in simple terms, gender explains the differences between men and women in social terms as men, and as what a man can do or what a man has to do, as a woman, or what a woman can do or what a woman cannot do. These are the scripts that are already provided to them, that okay, if you're a boy, you have to behave like that, you have to do like this, and if you're a woman, then you have to behave like this should be your behavior in the society. So therefore, gender is an analytical category that is socially constructed to differentiate the biological difference between men and women. So Anne Oakley says that the roles that are assigned to men and women help to support and maintain a further larger institution that is called as the patriarchal society. So the gender differences are set in hierarchical oppositions, such that men are superior and women are subordinate. And it is like a tradition, it is like a sermon by the patriarchal society, that men has to be at the dominating position, and women has to be in the subordinating position always. So then I have talked about Judith Butler, because she's a writer of a very famous book that is called as Gender Performativity, and she has given a very famous term of performativity in her particular book. So she theorized about gender, and she introduced the notion of performativity, an idea that gender is involuntarily performed within the dominant discourses of patriarchy, which means whenever an actor goes to perform in the theater or in the movie, they are already being provided with a script. And when they read that script, then they perform, which means a script is already being provided to all of us, and we have to perform according to that particular script. And if we move here and there, and if we are not going to follow the postulates of that particular script, ki ab ladki ho, you have to behave like this. If you are a boy, you have to behave like this. If you are a boy, you have to always show domination. Or agar aap ladki ho, aap unchi awaaz mein baat nahi kar sakte. You can't say, you can't give a voice to your feelings or whatever you want to say. So which means then you will become an outcast अगर आप उस particular script को follow नहीं करते. So she gave the concept of performativity, that there is always a gender wardrobe. एक आपके सामने is already provided a gender wardrobe. You have to pick the color, you have to pick the behavior, you have to pick your profession from that particular gender wardrobe. And the people who are not going to stuck themselves to that particular gender wardrobe, they are called as outcast, they are called as abnormals, they are called as perverts. So Butler has a great contribution in the formation of the concept of performative. So Butler's concept is perhaps more radical, as she asserts that all identity concepts are in fact that effects of institutions' practices, discourses with multiple and diffuse points of origin. She further states that sex gender distinction suggests a radical discontinuity between sexed bodies and culturally constructed gender. So, I will be further talking about deconstructing gender. Like Bivor has also talked about that we all can deconstruct gender. That if it is a social construction, if it is constructed by the society, then as a society we have the privilege to deconstruct this gender as well. So further, I'm going to discuss or I'm going to talk about that when we rethink about gender categories, it is very necessary to look at sex and gender as conceptually distinct as traditionally when we read different books from history, when we read Aristotle, when we read Plato, or when we read so many sociologists, what they have instigated on that there is a dire relationship between sex, gender, and sexuality, which means if a person is born in male sex or is born with male genital organs, then he has to perform a masculine gender and he has to be attracted to opposite sex, which means he has to perform heterosexuality. And if a person is born in male sex, he cannot perform feminine gender and he cannot get attracted to his own sexual partner. So, this is a traditional view that has been transferred from centuries to the contemporary generation. But now, the sociologists, the feminists, they all are talking about deconstructing this traditional concept of gender, that there is no relationship between sex, gender, and sexuality. So, for an individual, the components of gender are the sex category assigned at birth. So, what these gender categories are going to provide us, or what they provide us, first is a gender identity. That okay, you are born with the female sex organs, then you have to perform a feminine identity, which means you have to be polite, which means you have to be docile, which means you are not logical, you are not radical, you are born with irreasonable mind. And that has also been propagated in 5th and 6th century by Aristotle himself, that the brain size of female is lesser than the brain size of males. And from that particular time this notion has been propagated. That and moreover, it is a very recent thing that most of the universities in the Europe, they were not offering radical courses like mathematics, science to the female sex, because it has been continuously spread, or it has been constantly fed in the mind of the society that females cannot do mathematics, they are illogical creatures, they are not quick in driving, they cannot be pilots, they can only be teachers, or they can be beauticians, they can be good cooks, because there not much logic is required. Then second, this gender category provides a gendered sexual orientation. Like I have already discussed, that you have a sexual inclination. Like if you are born as a female, then you have a then you have a sexual orientation towards the other gender. And if you are masculine, if you are performing masculine gender, then you should have a sexual inclination towards the other gender. So marital and procreative status, then gendered personality structure that I have already discussed, that okay, you are a female, you can't laugh loudly in the society, you have to walk like this, you have to portray yourself as a sex object also, you always have to be dressed beautifully, because at the end of the day you have to win a partner. So and it is very common that gender category provides something or some type of subordination domination concept at work and family roles also. So all these social components are supposed to be consistent with one's biology, that they are indispensably related to your biology, that if you are female, then this blah blah blah, these are the categories that you have to fit in. And if you don't fit in all these ideologies, then you will be thrown out of the society as an outcast. So the need for official categorization in societies of infants into neat legal labels, boy or girl, soon after birth, are at the same time subject to arbitrary gender assignments. So again, I will be quoting Butler. According to Butler, I quote, any theorization about gender introduces the notion or idea of performance of gender in terms of masculinity and femininity that I have already discussed. Like William Shakespeare has said that the world is a theater and we all are actors. And when we all are actors, our society has already provided us with a script. Okay, you have to go to this world, and when you are born, we are, we have been provided the muted script. Ki, okay, if you are a girl, you have to wear pink. If you are a girl, you have to be docile. If you are a girl, you have to be a future mother. You have to be a future wife. You have to be a future daughter-in-law. So such characteristics are, idealized or molded into our character right from the birth. Okay, so the sex gender differences raises the issue of male as performing masculinity, like male performing masculinity, and female as performing femininity. With each constructions, the biological differences get heightened through social description of masculinity and femininity. Likewise, blue color, male, pink color, feminine, strength, masculinity, tough, masculinity, weakness, femininity, soft spoken, feminine. So, according to Butler, thus performance of gender becomes involuntary as gender gets internalized through the socialization process within the dominant discourses of patriarchy. Gender is performed at different levels within the family when a child is born, then within the education system. When you look at the textbooks, you see that W for woman, and woman is always wearing a sari, she is always wearing a bindi, and she is always in the kitchen. Okay. D for dad, and dad will always be wearing a tie, a shirt, a suit, and will be carrying a bag to the office. Then D for doll, and a girl, a small girl wearing a frock will be carrying a doll. So B for ball, a little boy wearing a knicker will be playing a ball. So these visual imageries create a deep impact into the mind of the young child who is just 2.5 or 3 years. Okay, I'm a boy. I have to wear a knicker. Knicker should be blue in color, and I have to go into the ground and I have to play football. And that stereotyping is also created in the mind of a girl who is also 2 or 2.5 years old. When she is reading that book, you tell him, okay, D for doll, and a girl who is wearing a pink frock will be carrying doll, and she's playing with the kitchen set, which means that she creates a visual imagery in her mind already, that okay, I have to stay inside the home. So that concept of private and public domain is instigated in the mind of the child right at the time that you are giving a book to the child, when he or she is at the pre-nursery level. So all these things, like your family structure, like your education system, then the orthodox religion, all these things are trying to propagate this concept of masculinity and femininity, and we all are instigated to perform this particular gender. Now I will be moving on to a very bigger institution that is called as patriarchy. Who is the main, you can say, who runs this particular process of formation of sex, gender, and sexuality? So I will say patriarchy is the main culprit. So what is patriarchy? Generally, when we talk about patriarchy, so when we translate it into English, patriarch means the absolute rule of the father, or in the other terms, you can say the eldest male member in the family. So patriarchy is thus the rule of the father over all in the family, over all women in the family, and also over younger male, socially and economically subordinated means. So patriarchy in our families in Indian society runs through two systems. One, the elder male rules the females, all the females, irrespective ki wo kis age ki hai. Then the elder males will rule the younger males, that whatever the decision that has been made by the father or the grandfather in the patriarchy, that cannot be denied by the younger males of the family, because they are socially and economically subordinated males. So patriarchy is equally harmful for males, and it is equally harmful for females also. So the patriarch is typically a societal elder who has legitimate power over others in the social unit. And if I will do it into more simpler terms, I will say it is the male domination, it is the male prejudice, or it is the male power. It automatically privileges men over women, such that women have little or no claim to material, sexual, and intellectual power. That is, in a patriarchal society, in a patriarchal resources of the society struggle to get education. Women have to struggle to be educated, to have property, or to make choices regarding marriage or education, or even the simpler areas of life. So for men, these resources are a matter of right, that okay, to male ho, so it is your right to get all these privileges. And if you are a female, the choice is not provided to you. And these choices at a very smaller level, even though in our lives, they have a effect in our life at a very deeper manner. So in a very general way, patriarchy today is a very catchword that describes the different ways in which society discriminates against women. So next slide that I have made is, how do men control women in a patriarchal system, or what are the different agencies through patriarchy runs. First is women's productive and labor work, which means that men control women's productivity both within the household and outside in paid labor work. There is a very famous feminist writer by the name Sylvia Valbe, who has written a good book, Patriarchy at Work, where she has, dug deeper into the concept of patriarchy, what is patriarchy, how this big institution runs. So she calls this as the patriarchal mode of production, where women's labor is expropriated by husbands and others who live there. Housewives are called as producing class, and husbands are the expropriatory class. So second is women reproduction. They can't decide how many children they want. They don't have the decision to terminate pregnancy, whether to use contraceptives. Like in some countries, state control family planning, like in Europe, women are lured to bear children by having long paid maternity leaves, childcare facilities, and opportunities for part time jobs also. Then, if we talk about women's sexuality, moral and legal regulation exists to restrict the expression of women's sexuality, both inside and outside marriage. While male promiscuity is often condoned, we see it is a very common thing: rapes, threat, shame, honor killing, family honor, female mutilated in the name of the honor of the family. So all these things owe to patriarchy. Then women's mobility, that women are not allowed to go from their own city to other city to get education, and it is a hereditary right of a male that तुम्हें कहीं भी पढ़ने जाना है, you can go. तुम्हें कहीं भी नौकरी करने जानी है, you can go. You want to settle anywhere, you can get settled. But all these things are hindrances for a woman, that you cannot leave your city for education, you cannot leave your city for job, you cannot leave your own for getting settled in some other city. वो तभी होगा when you will get married to a person. अगर उसका settlement कहीं और है तो you have to go with her. Then property and other economic resources. Most of the property and other productive resources are controlled by men and are passed on from father to son. Even in societies where women have legal rights to inherit property, customary practices, social sanctions, emotional pressures from the family, कि ये तो बेटे का birth right है, तुम तो दूसरे के घर हो, you will get their property. So these emotional pressures prevent them from acquiring control. Now there is a dire need for gender equality. So what is gender equality? Why it matters? This is a very important part, not only of feminism, not only of gender studies, but of our daily life. So when I teach my students in the class, what I say is this theory is never going to be finished. This is a theory that is evolving day by day. Any other theory can become redundant or dead, but gender equality or gender studies or feminism is something that is taking a new shape every day, because there are different oppressions that are emerging on a daily basis. There are different type of, you can say, domination strategies that have been adopted by the patriarchy, and there are newer and newer ideologies or the weapons that are used by patriarchy, and that is why the feminism is evolving day by day. So what is gender equality? So firstly, I will be talking about facts and figures. Then I will be moving on ki dekh lo, these facts and figure, have a look at these facts and figures. Then we all will talk about gender equality, that there is a dire need of the present times, that we all need gender equality. Globally, 26% of ever partnered women. So this is a data that I have taken from the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2022, and this is a very recent data. Aged between 15 and older, approximately 641 million women have been subjected to physical or sexual violence by a husband or intimate partner at least once in a lifetime. And these things have been exaggerated during the COVID process. Then in 2021, survey conducted in 13 countries, where 40% of women reported that they or a women they know in their close vicinity have experienced some form of violence since COVID, not only during COVID, but after COVID also. In 2021, nearly 1 in 5 young women were married in childhood, which means we are still practicing that childhood marriage, respectively in Southern Asia and Sub Saharan Africa. At least 200 million girls and women have been subjected to female mutilation, and it is very common in African countries that female genital organs are mutilated, mainly in 3 countries. Only 15 out of 52 reporting countries included sufficient provisions in their legal frameworks to protect women's right to land. In 2019, women only held 28% of managerial positions worldwide. Globally, 24% of adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 are not in education, employment, or training, compared to 13% of boys of the same age. In 2021, 3 quarters of new HIV infections among adolescents aged 10 to 19 occurred among girls worldwide. Maternal health conditions, hemorrhages, sepsis, obstructed labors were the second leading cause of death among girls aged 15 to 19. Self harm, suicides, is the third leading cause of death among adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 worldwide. So, why gender equality? Goal. So, the goal of the society should be to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Why? Firstly, I will be focusing on this particular, that why gender equality is required, because the answer is very clear. Females represent half of the world's population. Half of the world populations means half of the potential and half of the human resource lies within women. So today, gender inequality persists everywhere and stagnates social progress. Women continue to be underrepresented at all levels of political leadership across the globe. Women and girls perform a disproportionate share of unpaid domestic work. Inequalities faced by girls begin right at birth and follow them all their lives. In some countries, girls are deprived of even an access to healthcare, poor nutrition, leading to a higher mortality rate. Now, how? How it affects women? Firstly, I have discussed that why gender equality is needed. Now, how it affects women? How does gender inequality affects women is disadvantages in education translates into lack of access to skills and limited opportunities in the labor market. The main reason is that why there is a need of Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, because there is no access to education for the women, and which means that if you're not educated, you have been provided with limited opportunities in the labor market. Women empowerment is essential to expand economic growth and to promote social development. More issues like certain issues I have discussed, okay, female mutilation, health sector, education, There are so many other issues also. In three girls aged between 15 to 49 have experienced some form of female genital mutilation in 30 countries in Africa, Middle East, where the harmful practice is most common, with a high risk of prolonged bleeding infection, including HIV, childbirth complications, infertility, and even death. The COVID 19 lockdown further caused domestic violence to increase in many countries, including India, showing the critical importance of social protection for women and girls. So, now why gender equality matters? Why there is a need of gender equality? Regardless of where you live in, gender equality is a fundamental human right that women have the right to say that I am also a human being. Rest, according to our traditional view, males are only human beings. So what feminists want to say, that do consider us as living creatures, that we also exist, we also breathe, we can also walk, we are also a category of living things. So advancing gender equality is critical to all areas of a healthy society, from reducing poverty to promoting health, education, protection, and well being, not only of females, but also of males. So, how much we have achieved yet? International commitments to advance gender equality have brought about improvement in some areas. Like child marriages have been declined to a certain extent in recent years, and women's representation in the political arena is higher than ever before. But the promise of a world in which every woman and girl enjoys full gender equality and where all legal, social, and economic barriers to their empowerment have been removed remains unfulfilled, and it is very pathetic. So, what can we do to fix issues? How to fix these issues of gender equality? So, I will be talking about an individual level. I'm not here talking about the government intervention or the intervention of some international agencies or the national agencies. I'm talking about my level. I'm talking about your level. That how individual responsibility matters. If you're a girl and you're at a school, you're in a college or in a university, help empower your classmate to fight for their rights to access sexual and reproductive health services. If you're a woman, you can address unconscious biases and implicit associations that form an unintended and often an invisible barrier to equal opportunity. And if you're a man or a boy, you can work alongside women and girls to achieve gender equality and embrace healthy and respectful relationship with your mother, with your sister, with your wife, with your partner, with your daughter. Then you can fund educational campaigns. If you're a professional, if you earn, then you can fund educational campaigns to curb cultural practices like female genital mutilation and change harmful laws that limit the rights of girls and women and prevent them from achieving their full potential. Then I will be talking about feminism. Feminism, again, is a catchword like patriarchy, but people have different viewpoints about feminism. Some say that feminism is good for society, some say feminism is harmful for society. But feminism now has become an indispensable part of our society. And feminism, remember one thing always, that feminism does not talk about only, women empowerment. It also talks about gender equality. And when we talk about gender equality, there is not only one gender, there are multiple genders. So feminism is an awareness of women's oppression and exploitation in society, at the place of work, at your workplace, within the family, and the conscious effort by all the genders to change the situation, which means the conscious effort is not only by the feminine gender, but by all the genders. So the basic postulates. It is not only an academic exercise that, okay, I am teaching gender studies in the class, so I have to restrict it only to the academic exercise. It is not only an academic exercise like so many other theories, but it is action oriented, which, instigates the readers, the students, the audiences, the spectators to talk about it, to have an action for it. It is an ideology, it is a belief system, and it is an ideology against oppression and exploitation of women. And it talks about the social, political, cultural, economic rights of women. So it consists of ideologies by different critics. It talks about thoughts, it talks about theories, it talks about perspectives from time to time. So it is a woman's search for self identity. Self identity means you are a daughter, you are a wife, you are a daughter in law, you are a mother, you are a teacher, you are a nurse, you are a doctor, you are carrying multiple identities from morning to night. But who you are basic, that is self identity. That first of all, you are a woman. You have to, your first duty is towards you as a woman, and the rest of the responsibilities and rest of the taglines that you are carrying, they are just a part of your other identity. So feminism is a philosophy, it is also a movement that struggles against women's exploitation and expression. So it started in the West. It came to India in the early 19th century. And in India, Mahatma Gandhi also propagated feminism in one way or the other. So when we talk about feminism in the West, it is further, I will not be going deeper into these waves. So it is further divided into four waves. First wave, second wave, third wave, and fourth wave that is still going on. That is post feminism. So, first wave, 1848 to 1920, it focused on basically voting rights. Because in the West and in so many countries around the globe, women were debarred from having a voting right. औरतों को वोट करने का हक ही नहीं था. औरतों को बुजुर्ग, that the elders who were over the age of 70, and the children, all these three categories were put into the category of the illogical creature कि औरतों के पास भी दिमाग नहीं है, एल्डर्स के पास भी नहीं है, बच्चों के पास भी नहीं है, इसीलिए उनको राइट टू वोट जो है वो नहीं है. सो 18th century gave a boom to right to vote, to education, to employment, to marriage laws, that there should be changes in the marital laws कि मेल हैज द पावर टू गेट डिवोर्स, लेकिन औरत के पास वो पावर ही नहीं है कि how it doesn't matter how much domestic violence she is facing, that she's in a toxic relationship, but she cannot move outside that toxic marriage. So first wave focused on this particular thing कि if you can win the right to vote, if you can win the political rights, then you can earn anything. But unfortunately in 1920s the feminists realized that only by winning political rights you cannot achieve everything. You cannot get back your self identity that you have lost since the time of your birth. So there came the birth of the second wave of feminism. Second wave of feminism, the slogan of second wave of feminism was personal is political. कि personal कुछ भी नहीं है, घर में मार खाना पर्सनल नहीं है, प्रॉपर्टी ना ट्रांसफर होना पर्सनल नहीं है, रिप्रोडक्टिव राइट्स ना होना पर्सनल नहीं है, नथिंग इज पर्सनल, एवरीथिंग इज पॉलिटिकल. You have to again go back to constitution and you have to win all these rights, because what we think ये घर की बात है, घर में संभाल लो, ये घर में नहीं संभाली जा रही थी, इसीलिए waves की जरूरत पड़ी. So from 1920s to 1980s they focused on patriarchy. By patriarchy that I have already discussed in detail, कि in our education system, in our family setup, in our health sector, in our orthodox religion, these concepts of subordination and domination have been regularly fed into the male and female mind. So patriarchy, gender-based violence, that you have to legalize abortion, you have to legalize the control of women over her body, and birth control were the main prerogatives of the second wave of feminism. फिर 1980s में there was a realization of one thing कि भाई हमने political rights भी ले लिए, हमने gender rights भी ले लिए, अब क्या कमी है? Why there is something that we have not achieved? There came the birth of third wave of feminism in 1990. Intersectionality. Intersectionality means the first two waves have not included the black women. They have not included the Dalit women. They have not included the lower class women. But third wave talked about this thing that we all are women, irrespective of caste, color, creed, race, or class. from whatever class you are, from whatever color you are, from whatever race you are, we all are women. And this is intersectionality, that we have to include all the women from the world, chahe wo India se hai, chahe wo Britain se hai, chahe wo Germany se hai, because we all are women. So it talked about sisterhood concept, that there should be change in stereotypes. Why there is a preconceived notion in the mind of the male and the female? Okay, you are male, you have to behave like this. You are a female, you have to behave like this. There should be a change in the stereotypes. Then media portrayal. Why women are always portrayed as sex objects? You look at the ad of Rajnigandha. So the male Ajay Devgan will be eating Rajnigandha. Then Shah Rukh Khan will be eating Rajnigandha, and all the female, dancers, they would be dancing behind Ajay Devgan and Shah Rukh Khan. And a boy is driving a bike, and the female is sitting like an object behind the male. So these media portrayals, and in fact in our Bollywood movies, up to 2000, the females were objectified. The females were portrayed just an object, but not as a creature with a voice. So after that, contemporary society, there is post-feminism. Post-feminism talks about homosexuality. It talks about queer theory. It talks about sisterhood concept. It talks about body as being positive. That different taboos are related to female body. Okay? Maternity, menstruation, all these things are taboos that have been attached to a female body since centuries. Then now this is a time to remove all these taboos. If you want to get married, this is a time of making choices. If you want to get married, it's your choice. If you don't want to get married, it is again your choice. If you want to have kids, it's your choice. If you don't want to have kids, it's your choice, because it's your body. If you want to be a homemaker, it's your choice. Nobody can force you कि तुम पढ़ी लिखी हो, तुम काम करने जाओ. And if you want to do job, again, it's your choice. If you want to make a balance between workplace and home, it is again your choice. Which means post-feminism is talking about making choices. And when you will make your choice, which means you are deconstructing the gender norms. So the last slide is types of feminism. Different waves and different eras of feminism have given birth to different types of feminism. First is liberal feminism, is individualistic form of feminist theory, which focuses on women's ability to maintain their equality through their own actions, through their own choices. They argue that society holds the false belief that women are by nature less intellectual and physically less capable than man, so we have to show our individuality. Second is socialist feminism. It focuses upon the both public and private sphere of a woman's life and argues that liberation can be achieved by working to end both economic and cultural sources of oppression. Then radical feminism, it is a logical feminism. It seeks to abolish patriarchy by challenging existing social norms and institutions rather than through a purely political process. This includes changing the notion of traditional gender roles first, then opposing the sexual objectification of women, like I told you, in your ads, in your Bollywood movies, in your Hollywood movies, in Netflix series, everywhere, and raising public awareness about such issues as rape and violence against women. So I will be concluding my presentation by saying gender equality is essential to ensure that every child, it doesn't matter if the child is a girl or a boy, has a fair chance in life. And we should consider all the children, that they are living entities and they all have the right to live and sustain on this beautiful earth. So thanks a lot. This is all from my side.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session and for your time also. And also, candidates appreciating you in a chat box. That it's an interesting session.
Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me for this beautiful session. And it was really a very good opportunity for me to express my views on this particular topic. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.